Exodus chapter 3, verse 14. And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he said, Thus shalt thou say unto the children, I am hath sent me unto you. Bible smack. Okay, I am doing a review of Matt Dillahunty's teaching against the ontological argument. Matt Dillahunty is a popular YouTube atheist guy. He's interesting because he is like the homegrown intellectual type. He's got a high school degree and that's it. I have no problem with that, although it is kind of counterintuitive to what you see out there. Basically, these people who have multiple doctorates and stuff, they're already making their money and they don't want to risk it, so they don't get involved with this kind of stuff. And arguing a point is a different skill than research, okay, or dissertations. Now, Matt has this quiet video. It's kind of weird because I'm Matt, but Matt has this quiet video going over various views of the ontological argument, and I really appreciate it because he's actually taking time to think. Not thinking clearly, but he's taking the time to think. He's actually giving this a shot. He's being fair enough to, try to work it out. But there's a lot of things that kind of go on here, and I want to point these things out. The first thing is when we talk about the ontological argument. Of course, a lot of people will zip right to him, which I was never pushing this as a very strong argument from him, although his argument is a lot stronger, like now that I've read this text. His worldview is not stronger. It's like he's got two evangelical works. Then the rest of them is pagan Catholic. He's praying to Mary to forgive his sins, and he's praying to the apostles, and, oh, help me out, guys. You can intervene for me, It's just terrible. I mean, just totally pagan. But basically, he's depending on them for conversion and all sorts. All this stuff that you give to Jesus, he's just throwing right out there. And that's because this early Catholicism mixed up God with Plato's God. And Plato's God is just the high and holy and lifted up most high. Kind of like Nebuchadnezzar's God. If you look at the book of Daniel, Nebuchadnezzar will refer to God as the Most High because there are others that he worships. So he just refers to him as the Most High God, and that's it. You're the best of them. Now, but be that as it may, and I'll also probably talk a little bit more to that later. But it's just simply the fact that they take the humanity out of Jesus. I believe starting at the doctrine of eternal generation, and that which is all the way back to the Nicene. But they take that doctrine which eliminates the humanity of Christ, or at least downplays it, I should say, because they don't deny the humanity of Christ. But they basically say that it is the deity which is the Son, which both lowers the status, because all of a sudden one person is begotten another person of the Trinity. Then it's taking away from the humanity, because the humanity is not the humanity is not the Son. And basically, because it's taken away the humanity, that's what we see in Catholic worship. Okay? And other mainline Protestants that have Catholic tendencies all go in that direction. That kind of, let's not say Jesus, we'll just say Christ. Christ is a title. It's not his name. So let's get away from a personal relationship, But anyhow, enough getting after him about that. So basically, one thing I noticed after like reading this, once you actually get to his actual proslogion and stuff like that, is he has two things going. One, people do talk about, the whole thing is written out as prayer. Okay. And this is very important because this is an acknowledgement of God. But also, there's a chapter or two in his proslogion that people omit when they want to talk about it. They want to go with this definition without providing the backdrop. And the backdrop is that he talks about how mankind is fallen, how he feels fallen, and because he feels fallen, there's something that man was supposed to have God, and yet man does not have God. Okay, we have the fall of mankind, and this is put forth as a historical observation, a historical fact, and a spiritual truth. So when we talk about God, Dillahunty wants to kind of say, what's perfection? What is God? All right, now him and his whole school of thought is going to say, well, I don't deny the existence of every God. I just deny the existence of the Judeo-Christian one. Well, how do you know if you have? You have to define God. You have to have a definition that you are understanding and disagree with. Okay, there's a lot of theologies out there. What are you denying? Especially if you admit that there's different gods. Okay, or at least different definitions. But he is going back to a Judeo-Christian God because he's talking about Adam and Eve and the fall and all that kind of stuff when it comes to Anselm. And the other guys, it's kind of funny because Descartes, I think it's good and effective as a quick argument to kind of talk about I think therefore I am, the mind, and all that kind of stuff. But while it's a good connector, it also kind of messes with the foundation, because the foundation is the God of Scripture. So we have to understand an ontological argument starting with the God of Scripture. Because all the other arguments that Dillahunty and any of these atheists have is, we don't know what you're talking about. Which God? Yeah. So, the real question is, how can the atheist reject God? They can't define him. How do they know if they're disagreeing with him or just disagreeing with one guy's God or another guy's God? Maybe you're telling me about Bocephus's God. It's, oh yeah, he went to the church, but he spent a little too much time at the bar. So, that really just totally screws up their whole argument. When he's talking about knowing God, we have to have a difference between knowing God comprehensively or comprehending God versus knowing God exhaustively. No, we don't know God exhaustively. We don't know how powerful all-powerful is, but we know what all-powerful is. Okay? So our definition is a what and not a how. All right? And so we know God is all-knowing. We know God is eternal. We know God is immutable. These are things that we know, that we comprehend knowing. We're not saying that we know these things exhaustively. And if you do, then you can reject God. Okay? In minute number 16, after this big long spiel, it should be noted that he does eventually say, yes, we can, it's possible. Okay? He does. He admits it's a possibility. But he had gone over things. He talked about a perfect circle. Okay? We can't create a perfect circle here on earth. Well, we cannot create God here on earth. God is not a physical being. He is necessarily existent. And that is the word that, with all the research Dillahunty does, just never puts those together. He doesn't want people to think necessary existence. I'm wanting to do a special on Leibniz, because Leibniz, in his cosmological argument, says that everything that exists has to have an explanation. And so since everything that exists has an explanation, there has to be something necessarily existent to provide that. Okay, so this ontological argument is going to bounce into a cosmological argument. But, and then once you get that, then you start to get that physical substance that people worry about. Well, ontological argument is just convincing me. Why? Is it logically fathomable? Okay. If people understand this argument, and I want you to go to my ontological argument for creationism. Okay. I'll explain all that there. But basically, you have two options. Okay. Either it's impossible for God to exist, which I said, May 16, he finally does admit that it's possible for God to exist. He says, but it's not fair. It's a trick of language, trick of logic, something in our mind. Why is it our mind? Did evolution make that the fittest mind, which is one which is able to comprehend God? And by the way, it is a higher thought pattern, okay? Your brain, the neurology and stuff, it is a higher thinking type of thought, God. So basically, why did we evolve that? Doesn't it say it's more fit, it's more applicable? Maybe because God is real, because you have to fit to the environment, and well, the environment must fit with God. Then it says, let's see here. So he says God in our world. No, God is transcendent. God is not in the world. He created the world. Atheists cannot understand the infinite. They have no. They know that there's a concept, but they don't really understand the concept, because if they understand the concept, then they have to start understanding God and admitting that God is real. God by definition is real, because that's what we're talking about. Okay, we're talking about the God is real. People can know without explaining. So, people do know the ontological argument. It's just that they cannot explain the ontological argument. I remember once I was thinking about this 20 years ago, and I wasn't thinking about the ontological argument, but I thought about some other proofs of God, and he's like, well, how do you know? How do you know? What if everything you learned is a lie? Okay, that could happen. What if I was brainwashed? I was just like, Jesus is too good not to exist. And it's just something I felt from my heart. But that's ontological reasoning. Okay? Why is the reasoning in my brain? Because God put it there. Okay? God put it there for us to seek Him. Even like I've seen some ancient creation mythology from the pagans. And the pagans will say that the gods created mankind to worship the gods. Okay? To make a connection. Alright? Just as the animals are connected to the physical, the man is connected to spiritual. Okay? As we go out and we look out, the universe gets less and less complex the farther out we go. The farther in we go, it gets more complex. And so all the ideas of knowledge start to come from our minds. The problem is that our minds are limited. And we're getting knowledge from somewhere that's not our brain. Okay? People didn't just have the internet. Okay? And the environment, okay, the dirt of the desert or the jungle never said, here's an internet. Here's calculus. You have ideas that are outside of the environment. Where do we get these ideas? From God. Okay. So that's about it for today. Catch you later.